everyone, and welcome to Babble. I'm Megan Thomas, and today I'll be babbling with debut author Rahul Raina, whose novel, How To Kidnap The Rich, is out now with Little Brown in the UK and Harper Collins in the US. It tells a story of contemporary India through the lens of a laugh-out-loud satire about exam fraud, kidnappings, counter-kidnappings, and somehow also lays bare striking social commentary. Hi, Rahul, how are you?
Hi, thank you for the introduction. I feel I should just let you talk about the book because
I would love that. I've been having the best time reading it.
For the next half an hour, and then I can just stay silent. I think you do a better job selling it than I would.
Yes, I can say, this is what you meant by this chapter, right? And you can nod along.
The author, I think if I've learned something from this whole experience of having, thousands of people read stuff that you've written, I think often readers have a better idea of what I meant and what I intended than I sometimes did. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's amazing to have your work interpreted in so many different ways. Shows just kind of the power of a good story.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd never shown anyone anything I'd written before I sent this book out to agents and then eventually to publishers. So just the whole journey has been just totally crazy. From day one, it's just been mad. Yeah.
That is absolutely incredible, given that, it was in a 6-way auction. It was then published by Little Brown and Harper Collins. Like, what an incredible start. Well, what an incredible debut experience. What was it like for you then handing over this manuscript and not really knowing what to expect?
Obviously it was just crazy, going from a position where nobody has ever read anything that you've written to a position where people, are paying, good money for it. And people in Hollywood are reading your manuscript, and you've got sort of Hollywood studios calling you up and saying, "Hey, we'd love to buy this. Please send this to us." That was just, yeah. It was pretty crazy. It still is crazy, but yeah, that was really weird.
Yeah. Does it put a bit of a looming anxiety on the next one? No, sorry, that's a mean question. Ignore that.
And obviously, second book syndrome is a huge thing for so many people, and especially with people who debuted this year and last year. Some people are really, really feeling the pressure, especially because debut authors have been so hit by the pandemic, so they're really, they're feeling a lot of pressure right now. But for me, I just don't mind. Anything is better than nobody ever having read your stuff. So
yeah,
I'm cool.
So what were you doing before this that no one had ever read what you'd written?
So I wrote this in 2019. In 2018, I wrote this really 150,000 word novel, which I wrote for about 9 months. And the minute I completed it, I thought, this is awful. Nobody should ever read this. And I chucked it away. I deleted the file. I kind of burnt all the paper. And I said, nobody should ever read this again. It was set in London. It was a disaster. I'll never talk about it again.
An exclusive. Well, once you're super, super, super famous, you can release it as kind of a what came first? No.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. Everybody wants to be in the sort of the E.L. James and Stephanie Meyer position of just rewriting the same book, from 5 different POVs and just getting the money. But
sounds like it works for them.
Yeah.
And so I understand you split your time between Oxford and Delhi, running a startup in England and then working for charities and teaching English in India. Can you tell me a bit more about both of those?
Obviously, I was born in Delhi, and I kind of came here when I was, and I came to Oxford and London when I was younger, and I kind of split my time between the two of those because we didn't really know if we wanted to move to London or if we didn't want to move to London. It was all really complicated. People were getting sick of living in London, but then they went back to India for 2 months and said, actually, no, London is a lot better. So, my job splits time between the two places. I kind of work with companies in England and I work with companies in India, trying to make them kind of gel together. And so trying to kind of just smooth business between those two sides of the world. So that's what I do in my business life. And, when I'm in India, I sometimes do a bit of charity work as well, mostly with street kids, people from poor, disadvantaged backgrounds, people who want to learn English, people who want to just kind of, they want to make their mark in the world. And I'd like to think that, I kind of teach them kind of, secrets in a way, like how to speak English better, how to impress people who are looking for certain kinds of, language use. And that for me is just really interesting. I'm just interested in the English language generally.
Yeah. Well, I assume you're not writing their exams for them, like the characters in your book.
No. Just interview prep. But, yeah, nothing illegal.
But also, I'd love to talk a bit more about that topic of exam fraud that you talk about in the book. I don't know if I'm just incredibly naive, but I'd never even really heard of that being something that happened. I mean, I suppose I've heard it happening for SATs and stuff in the States, but is this something that does happen often in India?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's something that happens. It is a serious problem. Everybody knows it's a serious problem. It's a sort of a shady grey market, black market industry. But, when the US college exam scandal happened in 2019, I certainly knew that a whole bunch of my Indian friends either knew people directly who'd done stuff like this, not using doubles. That's fairly rare. And that tends to happen. It certainly doesn't tend to happen in Delhi as much. It happens more out in other states. And it happens generally after the university exams have happened. So it happens for like medical school entry. That's really when you're desperate to get into medical school and you are willing to spend any amount of money possible to get your kids into the right places. But, it happens, it can be bribing invigilators. It can be bribing teachers to give you exam answers. It can be hacking into exam entry databases and trying to kind of change answers or try to get the exam papers quickly. It can be technological fraud. It can be kind of like having Bluetooth sensors inside your clothes to tell you answers. There's just a whole industry of exams because exams are just so important in India. They are the be all and the end all.
Wow, that's fascinating. And I suppose something that is a byproduct of people with way too much money in somewhere where you need to be the best of the best in order to make it and to change things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're a rich person in India, you've gone from, 30 years ago, just being a rich person in an Indian sense to being a really rich person in a global sense. Incomes right at the top 1% are like $150,000 to $50,000. So they are rich by any stretch of the imagination. And so the amount of corruption they're able to pull off is endless because, the normal income in India is still very low. And so they've just exploded in wealth. And so they can just buy their way through society. And that's, it happens all the time in every aspect of Indian life.
Wow. Yeah. It was staggering to read. And I wonder how you went about the process of getting this balance, because you've nailed the balance between kind of key elements of India's socio-political environment, and then also just a quite ridiculous, funny, witty story. And I mean, ridiculous in the kind of sense of like a crime thriller vibe.
Yeah.
And I wonder how you achieve that balance without ever feel like you were kind of writing a list of this is how we do things, this is what happens here, or lessons in that respect.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you. That's very kind of you. Again, I feel that you should be the person selling this book for me because that would be easier than me selling it for myself. But when you're in India, you're exposed from a really young age to Indian movies and to Bollywood generally. And so, on a Friday or a Saturday, you pay your 100, 200 rupees, $1 or $2 or whatever, and you go to the cinema and you get a film which has everything in. So it has crime, it has thriller, it has romance, it has social commentary, it has tears, tragedy, family nonsense, all of that stuff in just one thing. And so for me, that was kind of the sort of the impetus and the starting point to kind of capture that sort of sense of you go to cinema on a Friday and you just get everything given to you in one package. That's what I wanted to do with this book.
Okay. Yeah. And the characters that you've made. I know your dedication in the beginning of the book was kind of for my family who are terrified this is about them. Were you drawing on people you knew for your characters, or that be confessing something far too?
Well, I mean, if there's one thing I'm proud of with this book, it's that I've not implicated any of my friends in anything criminal in any of the interviews or anything that I've done, which is, I think that's pretty impressive. But what, but definitely, the characters are all based on types of people that I know, because of legal reasons. They're not really based on individual people or individual con artists or individual politicians or individual businessmen. Nobody wants to get sued. But, in terms of trying to capture Indian youth, which is kind of what I was really interested in doing, and capturing the sort of lives that my upper middle class Indian friends lead, they're definitely based on people that I really do know. And they're also based, like the main character is based on some of, the poorer street kids that I've known in India. They're desperate to make their mark on the world. They're desperate for a little bit of wealth. They're desperate to kind of share in that huge torrent of money that's enveloped India in the last 20 or 30 years.
Well, the next thing I'd like to speak to you about is kind of the media response that the book has had. I mean, there's reviews from The Guardian, The Observer, The Sunday Times, The Times, and all very raving reviews. And my question's twofold. The first is, do you read the reviews? And then the second is, how does it feel to read them?
Sadly, I have a blanket zero policy of ever reading any reviews. People keep sending them to me, and my parents keep sending them to me, and they tell me they're good, but it just kind of freaks me out a little bit. So I think I've still not got over that initial hump of having people kind of talk to me about my book in the sense of, here's a review. I mean, like, I'm really happy to talk to readers about my book, but reviews just seem a little bit a bit out there for me right now.
No, and that's fair enough. It seems like it would be completely overwhelming. And you don't want to accidentally stumble across a bad one and then it taint all the good ones that are there.
Exactly. I mean, my publicist and my editor, they tell me all the reviews are good. They tell me there's a lot of praise. They tell me it's on these lists and stuff, but I just don't want to know. And they might be lying. That's the problem. So I have to trust them. Sadly.
Yeah. There's also this kind of nature of comparison that I find very interesting, in that a lot of, I'm about to tell you what some of the reviews say, but a lot of the reviews or people describing the books will say something like, for people who liked Crazy Rich Asians, Parasite, or My Sister the Serial Killer, this is the next best thing for you. How do you feel about that kind of nature of constantly comparing things to what's been written before?
Well, one of the things that you find out when you first enter into this whole world of publishing is that people use comps, comparative works, quite a lot. So my agent used them when he was selling the book. Editors use them when they're kind of trying to sell the book in-house, and they use them when they're trying to sell them to kind of bookstores. And so these were things that I was really comfortable with having comped. So, Crazy Rich Asians, which is great. We've had Kevin Kwan give a quote on top of the book. It's amazing. Thank you very much to him. My Sister the Serial Killer was something that I told my publishers that I found a really interesting read, something that I would love to be compared to, because it's just such a brilliant piece of work about, feminism. It's about Nigeria, which is a country I just find absolutely fascinating. So in the case of my book, these comps, these works are something that I'm happy to be compared to, and I'm happy for, people who like those things to like this. The situation you can get with publishing is that people are given these comps which they aren't happy with, and which are just kind of badly thought through, and that people have just not been thinking about, and which are a bit of a disaster. But in my case, I was really happy because these are the sort of works that speak to me. Parasite, such an amazing piece of work. It's got the comedy, it's got the thriller, it's got the social commentary, it's got all of that stuff in just one lovely big pile. So I'm happy with these comps. I mean, hopefully I'm as good enough. I'm sort of good enough to be on somewhere approaching that level, hopefully, let's not oversell things. But yeah, I'm happy with it. Yeah,
that's good. And so it's also been sold to HBO, which is very exciting. Congratulations. Is that to be made into a film or into a series?
That would be a TV series. Yeah. Films are, there's obviously so much kind of more money and more prestige nowadays in television than there is in film, and you can just tell bigger, longer, more complicated stories. This would be, I think if it were a 2-hour film, I think like the first 40 minutes would just be explaining what's going on for a bigger audience. So I think, TV series, they're currently writing the pilot right now. We'll see what happens. Very few Hollywood things ever get made, but they do give you money up front, which is fantastic. I'll be, buying a small meal with that or something, whatever it is that I'm going to do with it. But yeah, that's the process. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. And I mean, you might not know this yet, but would you be able to be involved in the process if it were to be made?
I am a consultant, a creative consultant for it. So yeah, I'll be kind of, giving advice. Yeah.
Yeah. Or that looks terrible. Stop. I doubt HBO would let that happen.
Well, I mean, they'll probably give me a T-shirt at the end of it, and and a cap.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd
lovely.
be nice.
You can wear it to the meal you buy with the money they give you.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you kind of mentioned this already, but just in the fact that being a debut author, you don't really know what to expect. There's so many surprises. Nobody had read your work before you went into this. But if you can, is there something specific that you just were not expecting from the whole process that kind of you wouldn't have even guessed was something that would happen to someone in this kind of situation?
I mean, there's like an endless amount of stuff because all of these guides and books that you read about how to get published, they're only ever about how to get your agent, and they kind of stop there. It's like, how do you write your query letter? How do you write your synopsis? And then it ends with how you get your agent. And everything after that is a bit of a mystery to pretty much everyone. And there's no one way to do these things in publishing. There are people I know who have gotten absolutely tiny advances with their books, and they're really unhappy with their publishers, and they never talk to anyone at their publishers, and they're just miserable all the time. And there are people who've got absolutely massive advances who are totally happy all the time, and they get taken on 5-star meals, and they, get kind of flown around the world. So I think if there's one thing about publishing, it's that you never really can know what to expect until you're into it. It's just such an interesting industry. Things can happen over huge amounts of time. It can take 2 years in my case to publish my book. And then there are things that can happen like in one day, like an offer coming in for your book, or like 1 hour, somebody saying you've got 1 hour to decide whether to sell your book to us. And if you don't, then, you can go to hell. So yeah, it's that sense of, it's just this industry that nobody really knows anything about. We all know about books. We all know about bestsellers. We all know about J.K. Rowling, whoever. We just don't know about the industry itself. So every single day is a surprise to me. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you submitted it the first time, was there a quick response?
Yes.
Your agent?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was really cool. I think he was on holiday. So he was like, please send me the rest of this, but please be aware that I'm on holiday. Please don't, randomly go to someone else before I've had a chance to look at it, which was really interesting. Yeah.
Okay. And so when do you write? Is it kind of an after work thing? Is it a lunch break thing? Or you?
So for the last, so 2019, I sold this book. So from 2014 onwards, roughly, I was pretty much writing from 9 at night until 1 in the morning, pretty much every single day, just whatever I felt like. Sometimes it was diary entries, sometimes it was character pieces, short stories. It was, that kind of in the middle of the night, 3 or 4 hours type process. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm grateful for your late night musings.
Yeah. Well, someone is finally, thankfully, it wasn't all wasted is what I can say to my parents and to my ex-partners. Yes.
Well, and is there anything on the cards? Is there a next book, a sequel, a new book?
It's not a sequel, but where I'm looking to do something set slightly more in Britain, slightly more kind of cozy, crime-ish, thriller-ish, mystery. I see it with my writing process, it's always 18 different things at once. It's never just here's a detective story. I think I'm a bit more kind of going in every direction, sadly.
And is that kind of genre something that you read a lot of?
Yeah, growing up in an Indian family, you pretty much read everything. There's no sense of here's literary fiction, here's romance fiction, here's crime fiction. You kind of just read whatever, because that's the way that the market in India operates. You just buy books and then you read them. Nobody really cares about genres there, or at least they didn't used to. So yeah, I love everything. Romance, I love Victorian stuff, I love thrillers, sci-fi, yeah, pretty much anything. Anything that floats my boat.
Well, I think that's a great attitude to have. It gives you so much more scope. And yeah, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I think I've made it hopefully clear that I really enjoyed your novel, and I think that our audiences will too, and that they should go to the links through our bios and buy the book and read it and let us know what they think. And we won't tell you what they think. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Lovely to talk to you.
Yes, lovely to chat. Bye.
Bye.